Hello, level one. So we are at my house on my very out of tune piano. Sorry about that. Anyway, to finish up for our semester, things we would have done in class that we're just not going to get to do, and I know we'll probably have to do a lot of review when we get back to school in the fall if you go on to level 2. But I'm going to go ahead and do the chord progressions as we would do them at the end of the semester. And if you do have a keyboard, I know some of you do, you can play these for me and just video yourself. And if you don't, then just all we can do is write them out, right? That's about it. So anyway, I've had you do chords and inversions in the 1, the 4, and the 5 in each of those keys. So here when you get to chapter 11 or unit 11, it's the dominant 7th chord. So you've already written out for me the tonic, the subdominant, and the dominant. So this is nothing new. Just focusing on the 5 chord here. So for example, they play C, and then the 5 chord is a G chord. But you can see that to do that progression, those 2 chords are a couple of the main chords within each key. It means doing a lot of hopping, and it's not very conducive to playing accurately. So if you look at the chords, you'll notice they have that note in common. So instead of putting that G up here, why don't we put it in an inversion? So they've got it, they show you right there, the first inversion of the G chord. And then when you do it that way, you got a nice chord progression, and you don't have to move your hand. So that's what the right hand with your left hand, it would look like. So you notice I do 1, 3, 5 on those in the left, but in the right hand it's 1, 3, 5, 1, 2, 5. Remember, anytime you're going to stretch here. So we try to keep these 4 fingers in a row on the keys whenever possible. Anyway, that is your basic 1-5-1 chord progression. Now the only other thing they add to this is the 7th. So if you ever see 5-7, dominant 7, if you haven't had it in music theory, it's the same chord. We're just adding, we have the root 3rd, 5th, we're adding a 7th. So now we have what we call a G7, your dominant 7 within the key of C. And when they invert that, it's a mess. It looks like a mess, but we're just gonna put that in that position, and it doesn't really sound great, but that's our 1-5-7-1 progression at the bottom of 149. And that's what I would like people to do. If you see on the next page, on 150, the top line, they've got it written out for you in C, F, and G. And like always, if you could do those in D, A, and E, we'll try to do them with the dominant 7ths. And just to make that a little more clear, if that didn't make sense. For instance, I'll do the G chord, or the G progression. So G major, remember you have your F sharp in the key signature. Your 1 chord is G, your dominant chord is D, and if we add a 7th away from the D on top, we've got a D7. So instead of doing this ridiculous that progression, we're just going to move this D7 down so that the D is on top. That's what we're doing. You will notice that they drop a note out of the 7th chord just to make it easier to play, so you don't have to use quite so many fingers. They tell you about that there. The 5th is omitted just to make it smoother and easier. If you're going to leave a note out of a chord, it's usually the 5th. If you leave out the root note, you don't know what chord it is. If you leave out the 3rd, you don't know major or minor, right? And if you leave out the 7th, well, it's no longer a 7th chord. So if we're going to leave out any note, it's usually the 5th. And that's why that thing looks so weird when we do it like that. didn't have D. I wouldn't count it wrong if you included it, but anyway, so in G, your D7 was D, F sharp, A, C, the 5 chord in G. And we're just going to move those 3 to the bottom. Or think of the D on top. So I want you to, if you can, figure out the rest of those progressions. They wrote out C, F, and G, but we've done D, A, and E major. So if you can try that progression and either play it for me or write them out for me or both, or that would be great.